everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the SilentPunt podcast. I'm your host, Henny Hemmons. Joining me this week is former Major League Baseball player Jason Botts. I met Jason on Substack a little while ago. He is the author and writer of Have Bat, Will Travel. Please check him out there. Excellent writer, tells some awesome stories. Jason is also a mental coaching person for young baseball players and is doing a lot of work with that. We're going to talk about baseball, obviously. We had the All-Star game a couple nights ago, so I thought this might be a good time to talk with Jason. But not just baseball, adversity, imperfection, getting better at life in general, all of that mental side of stuff, as well as parenting. He's raising two boys, I'm raising a girl, and some pretty cool stories along the way involving some folks like Sammy Sosa and Aroldis Chapman. So hope you enjoy it. Also, if you do, please remember to rate, review, subscribe to us and the channel. We just this past week cracked the top 25% of all podcasts that are out there in terms of downloads and listens, which is kind of crazy to me, seeing as that I'm doing this in my den by myself. But thanks to everybody that's been on. Thanks to all you guys that are listening, and especially thanks to people that are telling other people about it, because that's the only way that stuff like that happens. So appreciate it. And without further ado, here is Jason Botts. Jason Botts, welcome to the SilentPunt podcast. How you doing?
Doing great, Henny. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I love your writing, and I'm going to start off with the first question based off one of the things you've written somewhat recently. You talked about your stint in the major leagues and kind of how you had some regrets of wanting that time to be longer, juxtaposed to when you were a kid, just kind of wanting to make the show.
Yeah.
And I had, Tim Brown was on the podcast recently. He wrote Nolan Ryan's biography, and Nolan Ryan retired when he was 46 and basically said the same thing, and you in your writing mentioned meeting people that, were 9 and 10 year vets saying the same thing. I'm drawn to say, why do men, but I think it's more, why do kind of high achievers always do that to themselves, changing and moving the goalposts?
Yeah. Why does that happen?
Why do you think?
I don't know why that happens. I think that's why I was posing the question or writing about it myself, is like, and I guess to fill it in, like what you're referring to. Yeah, I think I wrote either in a post, or I think I've done it in a note too on Substack, where it's like, when I was a kid, I used to go to these Giants games with my grandfather, and like I'd sit there as a little kid. And as I got older, it was like, man, one day, like, I'd watch them walk out onto the field from the clubhouse and be like, that just is the coolest thing, like to wake up and to do that. If I could just do that for one day, that'd be such an accomplishment and a dream come true. And then I was a bit of a late bloomer, but as time went along and you're getting scouted or you sign a professional contract and you get to that point, and it's like somewhere along the lines, like the definition of success was if I got 10 years in the big leagues, like that would have been a real successful achievement. And I don't know how that happened. And maybe I was writing about it, just sharing my experience. And I would, when I retired, I remember being really upset, really frustrated that I only had parts of 4 seasons in the major leagues. And then I would have conversations with other guys who had retired and they had more time than me, but they had the same feelings. And then I'd meet someone else who had, a 10+ year career, and maybe even they made an all-star game or two. And it was the same thing. It was like, they still didn't quite meet the expectations that they had. And, yeah, I think it was a thought. It was an experience I wanted to share, because I know other people probably have that too in some form or another. And then at the same time, I was like, okay, like I'm getting involved in writing. I'm getting involved in other things. Like I still have a second half of life to live. Like, how do I not make that same mistake again in some other endeavor that it just wasn't quite what I expected or wasn't enough? And then at the same time too, like I have 2 sons, one's 16, one's 14. They want to play the game, and there's a lot of things that they're going to make their own mistakes, and I'm aware of that. I also don't want to hopefully not make the same mistakes that I did. And so I think something that transpired from me writing about it too is like having some conversations where it's like, was my experience. Like, I don't really know what the solution is to it. I think at one point I sat him like, I think I told him the other day, I was like, you guys will never be good enough, never be as good uh, as you ever expect to be. Or I can't remember how I stated it in a way that actually made really good sense at the time. Um, and I think that's true for everybody. Like, you're never going to be as good as you think you could be. So you might as well just not worry about the expectations and have a clear vision of the player you want to become, and just try to enjoy the hell out of the process, enjoy it all. And yeah, I don't know where that went with the question or in the
No,
answer, but
that's I think that's why I asked it first, is because I think a lot of people that are our age and, um, maybe on the second side of a
no,
career.
and yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because I really want to address that, because I've been joking around over the last year about like being in a midlife crisis. I'm 45 years old. I used to make these funny videos for several months on Instagram calling myself the 45U ball player. And there was a lot of relatability to that for other people, but I'm always making jokes about being in a midlife crisis. But I think until meeting you, reading your work, your notes, like, I've never felt middle aged before until I get into your stuff. And so thanks. I
Sorry,
thought I
dude.
was making jokes, and then I realized that no,
Well, I
I
just
am
hey,
there.
I'll take middle age. It's better than so, okay, a funny story that I like that I want you to share with folks is, playing in the old Oakland Coliseum, in the empty Oakland Coliseum, and your cousins.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, I'd referenced an old set of stories, I guess. So I grew up 4 hours south of Oakland, um, but my grandfather lived in Woodside, California. It's like 30 minutes from San Francisco. I'm not sure how far that is from Oakland, but my cousins, they grew up in Santa Cruz. They went to University of Santa Clara, and it was about that time when I was up in the major leagues. And so every time I played in Oakland, because we same division with the Texas Rangers, we played there a lot. And so go to Oakland, and it's pretty empty. And yeah, my cousins, who one might have been 3 or 4 years younger than me, and the other one might have been 6 years younger. So I'm 25 at the time. They're in college, and like, they would sit up in the empty bleachers behind me when I was playing left field. And yeah, there was a lot of moments where I would just turn around and we would just start talking. And here I am, playing Major League Baseball game, but at the same time, it felt just like a Sunday men's league softball, something, sandlot game or something, and just having ongoing conversations with my cousins right behind me. And that's something I think as time goes along and I write more about it, I find myself going. It's so little. It has to do with the success and the really great experiences where I did something good. It has to do with the connections of family and sharing those experiences, whether it was my grandfather, old high school coaches. Like, I remember taking batting practice in San Francisco and looking over and seeing my high school coach, who I didn't know was going to be there, and he's got his like hat turned around backwards, and he's going crazy and kind of getting my. I think I hit a few home runs, hit a few balls into McCovey Cove, and just seeing and catching him and his reaction, and it's just little moments like that. It's like, wow, that was pretty cool. That seems to have balanced that. Um, as what we talked about in the beginning of like, okay, it didn't go quite good enough. It didn't go the way that I expected it. And then at the same time, like, wow, these are really cool moments that like at the time, like, I really didn't appreciate or understand the magnitude of. Um, but now that I'm middle aged, thanks, I do have a much greater appreciation.
Well, you're so focused in the moment too, like, it's hard to
Yeah.
appreciate those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Like, and I think I wrote just the other day, there was one little story that I shared about, uh, on the video board in San Francisco, because my grandfather was a season ticket holder for the Giants for close to 40 years. Always had the same seats, whether it was in Candlestick or at the new park. I always want to call it Pac Bell because I think that was the original name of it. Um, And when we went to play there in interleague, I was DHing at the time, so I didn't start. I had to come in and pinch hit. And I remember I hit a pop up for an out off Jason Schmidt, and I was like fuming in the dugout. And I was only caught up in this idea of like, I screwed up my bat. I screwed up this opportunity because I wasn't playing a whole lot at the time anyway. And so like during those stretches, like every at bat is really amplified, especially when it goes bad. And I had my head down. I'm upset. I'm frustrated about this out. And then a teammate called out to me and was like, "Hey, look at the video board." And it was this message that Carl Rosine, longtime Giants fan, is here today watching his grandson, Rangers rookie Jason Botts. So that was one of those moments that it was a quick shift of feeling grateful and feeling blessed and looking up and knowing where his seats were. And my mom was up there and my aunt, some of my cousins and other family members and stuff. And just kind of like, all right, that was one that was much easier
Yeah.
to get in the moment really quickly. But there were so many that I I don't want to say I missed out on, but I didn't really appreciate it at the level I should have.
Well, and then I think in this phase of life, it makes things a little bit easier thinking about those experiences too, the time with your sons, to value that a little bit more because you understand it's going to be gone like that.
Yeah. Yeah, don't bring that up. Like,
Hey, I'm staring it
like,
in the face
yeah, I
too.
know, but yours is 17? You thought
Yeah,
it's
should be a senior in high school.
about
Yeah.
to be a senior, yeah, so I know luckily, like, my closest, oldest friend, his first son, he was a freshman at college this year, so it's like, so I guess his oldest son is maybe 3 years older, so it's like he's been prepping me for a long time.
Be
Being a
ready for
being a step ahead and to keep reminding me to appreciate these things and what he's missing right now, and it causes me to be a little bit more present on the little things, I think, and not get caught up so much about the stressors. But um, yeah, and I've
it.
worked as a mentor for a lot of up and coming ball players, and like this has been a really important getting into the writing thing and like kind of diving back into these stories and not trying to build a perfect model because I don't think it exists, but maybe have one that's philosophically a little bit better for most people, I think, like realizing like how hard things are, that it's hard for everybody, that the adversity that's going to come up, um, the unique challenges of being a ball player and like trying to fit into life at the same time, the difficulty of relationships while playing, and I don't know, just trying to articulate the experience that you go through and share it on a wider scale so that you know it turns out not to be exactly the way that you think it will be, and maybe give us some tidbits on what to look out for. So
But it's certainly a journey that a lot of people can learn from, and um, your rise through the Ranger system, as I was doing like a deeper dive on it, looked kind of like a prototypical guy moving up the system, successful at every level. Um, and then there was always just, I mean, the first baseman in the system at the time were crazy. And then, I think it was either '07, '08. You're looking at probably having a great chance to be the DH, and then a certain guy gets signed.
slamming Sammy Sosa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then things like that happen to that one was like kind of the biggest one. But there was always little things like that. And I think I referenced a story too about how Buck Showalter called me in the office one time because at the time my best friend was Ian Kinsler. We were roommates together forever, and like he had an opportunity where, like the way Buck put it was like the waters were parted. They traded Alfonso Soriano, and like there's this glaring hole at second base, and Ian Kinsler's established himself as one of the best prospects in our organization. He just finished a year of AAA. It's like everything worked out perfect. And my story's not unique. My story was different, but it's definitely not unique. A lot of guys, they get to that certain when they're ready to be in the major leagues or get an opportunity to see if they are ready. Things are blocked. And sometimes those guys get traded, sometimes they don't. And yeah, I had another one too. I haven't shared about it yet either, but almost the same similar thing happened when I went to Japan for a couple of years and I came back and signed with the White Sox. And I had it was almost the same thing where it was like I wasn't gonna be the DH, but I had a really great chance of being the DH. At least that's what I was told by the front office. And then like a week or two, they signed Andruw Jones. And I remember just like the moment going like, oh, this is not gonna happen. And yeah, there's some other funny parts of that story, but we'll save that for a writing down the road.
There you go. Well, what it reminded me of as a football guy is like quarterbacks and being drafted. You know, there are so many great quarterbacks that wind up being drafted, and it's so much about where they're drafted, who's drafted them. You use the word runway, the runway that they have. Are they going to be allowed to develop and fail and succeed again? I think that was one of the things that stuck out to me reading your background is, you know, you never really got an opportunity at that level to just play and be comfortable in your space. And I think that's a real big thing for athletes in general is being in an environment that is supportive of you, that knows you're going to fail occasionally. I mean, baseball is about failure, but all sports is, and how you overcome that failure. I'm imagining a lot of that stuff that you went through has kind of guided your mental coaching and the stuff that you're doing now with young players, correct?
Yeah. Um, I think it was interesting 'cause I had a mental performance coach the second half of my career. And that was when, like, not long after working with him, I was like, it was an independent person. It wasn't through the organization because we always had sports psychologists, but there's always rumors and stories that like you talk to those guys, other people are going to find out, and may or may not be something you want them to. So I was like, the idea of being an independent or having an independent person was really cool at the time. And it wasn't long after working with him that I was like, I think I want to do this. I think this is my next step. And mindset was always a huge part of my journey, even on my own since I was 15 years old. Like I had a passion for reading about it and studying about it. And but it's been interesting because in the beginning, the first few years, like I taught, I think what I would call like traditional sports psychology. But what I've learned over the last few years is like, and that's why I like to call myself a mentor more than a mental performance coach. But I mean, it's one and the same thing. Um, just sharing how much I failed or how much I question things. And because people can look at my career and see it as like a really successful career, especially at the minor league level where I was a very successful hitter. And to be able to share stories of like how hard it was or how the difficulty of my own headspace and still be able to produce, especially for young kids, especially in the social media era where
Mm.
it's like everyone's like looking like they can do no wrong on their social media page. Like I can't even imagine being growing up in a time like this, having to compare and contrast against people all across the country. When I was a kid, like I knew who the kids were in my county. I knew some of the better ones outside of the county. And then other than like a Baseball America article or something like that, like a national publication, like back then, like I might be able to know a few people who are in the top 100 in the class across, but like now you know everybody, it seems like, because of the social media. So for me, the success of the mentorship or the mental coaching is just you don't have to be perfect. And I think being able to be someone who is open and honest and can articulate maybe like how bad I was at certain times and still was able to have a great year. Like, I don't know. It seems to be I spend my time talking about that stuff more than I talk about visualizing or thinking positively or all this, like just having conversations that are real and honest about like how not perfect you can be and still be incredibly successful.
Yeah, no doubt. And that, one of the things I used to talk to my players about all the time is as it relates to failure it's not the failure, it's the amount of time between the failure and when you start again. Like,
Mm.
are you gonna wallow for a day, or are you gonna wallow for 6 hours, for
Mm.
a week? It's gonna happen to everybody. The sooner you can put it away, the better. And I think you may have mentioned this just earlier in the podcast, but one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because I know you've had a relationship with him and told some stories about him, but I didn't realize until I interviewed Tim Brown for the Nolan Ryan book that he wrote Rick Ankiel's book, and he certainly has a really neat journey. Tell us about your connection with him and all of that.
Yeah, the way our careers, we were never really near each other. So he would have got up quicker. He got up to the big leagues really quick, and then he had his years of struggling to find his command off the mound. But when he made the decision to come back as an outfielder, um, he restarted through the Cardinals minor league system, and we ran into each other in St. Louis. And I can't remember if I might have edited this story part of the story out, but I broke a finger that night, and I was hanging out in the training room um, to see their team doctor. And that was when I met him. It was after the game he came in, or maybe it was between innings or something. And so I got to talk to him for a few minutes then. But more of our relationship is after I retired, not long after I ended up moving to Jupiter, Florida, or Palm Beach Gardens, Florida first. And they have a really great youth baseball league there, and I think it's through Cal Ripken. And as you can imagine, there's a ton of former players that live in that area because of the spring training complexes and whatnot. And I think Rick was born not far away from there. That's where he grew up. But anyway, long story short, um, our kids were on the same teams. I think he has two boys that I think they're like back to back grades. So I can't remember which. I think my youngest son had both of them on a team one time, and then another year, I think the older one was with my older son. I can't remember exactly right, but um, yeah, getting to hang out with him at watching little league games and doing a little bit of coaching, but really, really liked him. And I was really surprised too, because I waited a few interactions before I started asking questions about the Yips basically and his experience. And I was really surprised on how open he was to talk about it. And I was really fascinated with like how much um he understood about the psychological aspects, and whether he never figured. I think at that time he was actually trying to come back as a pitcher, which many people might not know about. But like towards the
Oh,
end,
do that,
at
yeah.
like 38, when I kind of was buddies a little bit with him at the time, like he was actually had just pitched in. There was like I don't this is actually a part of baseball that I don't know very well, but I don't know if it's like an American Legion championships. They usually have like a team of former players.
Mm.
They former major leaguers come together and they play in their little World Series too, and play against some of these American Legion teams. But Rick had came in and he pitched and he was throwing 90, 91 off the mound. And he's 38 years old and he hasn't really thrown off the mound in 10 years and all this other stuff. And like at that time, it put a seeds like, I need one more chapter in the book. That's what he told me. He's like, I need a one more chapter. And so he's like, I want to get back to the big leagues as a pitcher and, kind of close the loop on things. And
Right.
I think he ended up having a hip issue or a shoulder issue or something. I think that got shut down, but um, yeah, really liked Rick. I know he worked a ton with Harvey Dorfman, who is along with Ken Revisa. Those were the two OGs of sports psychology and baseball. And we talked a lot about Harvey Dorfman because I read all his books when I was young and growing up, and had plenty of questions about Harvey. And yeah, it's baseball talk.
Well, I figured it would be in your wheelhouse in terms of the mental stuff. And um,
Yeah, yeah.
how long after playing did it take you to um, think about helping other people in that regard, or did it happen right away?
It was my intention. Um, it took me It was my attention right out the not right out the gate, because it took me probably I don't know. I have to really think about it. It was about a month or so into the off season where I was like, okay, I'm done. So that first month is like uh, kind of relaxing and recovering and thinking about the next year and what trying to find a team and what my plans were. And then I went to a leadership conference and I was like, you know what? Like I could be doing something different. I could be doing something more. It was really, it was really clear in my head at the time, like baseball kind of felt a little selfish.
Mm.
There wasn't any direct, uh, making other people's lives better. And I knew coaching would do that. And so I made the decision that I wanted to get into mindset and mental performance coaching. But then I hit the dumps of of deciding not to play anymore and struggle with that for several months and then like kind of was taking actions towards coaching but not like fully aligned, not fully into it. And so I would say it took probably a year before it really got off the ground and really started moving. Um, yeah.
Well, that's a hard transition. I mean, I've spoken with athletes before when it's one thing when you played through college and you're 22 years old, but it's another thing when you're in your 30s and it's all
Mm.
your adult life has been. That's a huge transition.
Yes, 30, 34, I think I was. And yeah, I it was interesting because I know Braden Bishop is writing on Substack too. Like he wrote something about retiring, and it was very interesting because hadn't ever thought about it. Um, he talked about because we had similar careers where it was like every day, especially at the major league level, we didn't know if you're going to be there tomorrow. And some guys are on these multi-million-dollar contracts, and like they can't even begin to screw up enough to
Right.
be released or be sent home, right? For the most part. It does happen on occasion, but it's very rare. And then you got guys who are on year to, they have a contract for the season. And so in the back of their mind, they're going out there every day trying to get a contract for next year, but it's like they know they're going to be there tomorrow.
Right.
And then there's a bunch of other guys that fill in the rosters. That was my role and was for Braden too, where it's like, you don't know if you're going to be there tomorrow. Like you could even go out and have a good game and the bullpen, gives up a bunch of runs and the bullpen, their arms, you need a new arm for the bullpen. You need to bring up a new pitcher and, you're the odd man out and you get sent down even if you haven't done anything.
Right.
So, um, I think the stress and the way that Braden put it was like fight or flight. He realized that he was in fight or flight for many, many years, and I do remember that. I remember, um, I went to that leadership training, came back, and I was like, "I think I am done." And I remember the biggest, like, sense of relief.
Hmm.
I remember, like, not even being active for 2 weeks, not working out, not going to the gym, because I remember, like, just how much better my body felt, and, like, I didn't understand it at the time. It was like, "Oh, my body feels really great because I'm not working out right now, so I'm gonna keep not working out." But I think it was just
Rest of it.
yeah, just the mental relief of not having to figure out next year or what's going to happen, like just all the questions that come day to day of the life of being a professional ball player, especially when you're at that. Like if you looked at my career, it was like I had there were like 4 seasons there where it was like I'd go to spring training, get released from that team, go to independent ball, do great, get picked up, and get sent to a AAA team, finish the year in AAA, and the way that happens is like I would need to make up some income because you go to spring training on a great contract, you get released, you go to independent ball where you make nothing, and then if they pick you up out of indie ball, they pretty much sign you to about a half or a third of what you're worth. Cause like that's better than what you were doing in indie ball. So like as a dad and husband at the time, like you just take it. And so I'd have to always go out and play winter ball the during the winter months because like I could make a really good living doing that down in Mexico or Puerto Rico, wherever it was. So but it was like, it was 4 teams a year. And it had 3 or 4 years where they were all 4 different teams every year. And yeah, so like when the day came and I retired, it was like there was a huge sense of relief because you don't have to worry about plans and backup plans and all this other stuff. So, um, I just remember this huge sense of relief and, but it was really interesting too, because that was like letting go and dropping my guard. And then like after a couple weeks of that was this huge sadness, not knowing who I was, complete loss of identity, not knowing who I was, not really thinking I was ever going to be anything special again. Um, that feeling of significance, I think that the being a ball player always gave me, which is really interesting because like even the mental coaching, I loved it. I ended up taking a break a couple years ago from it, and I got back into it a couple years ago. Um, but the writing, oddly enough, has been the one thing that uh, I enjoy as much as I do playing ball, and that's been really cool to experience over the last. It's been going on for 4 years, but really like the last year of really focusing on it and really diving into it. Um, it's really rewarding.
Well, we talked a little bit about that before we started, and I've gone through a little bit of that myself, and you were talking about revisiting some of those tough times in writing them. And if you write it, you have to be completely honest with yourself and put it on the paper.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you're not doing that, it's a lot easier to build a story in your mind about maybe what happened or how this person harmed you or that or
Yeah.
situation. But when you're going to commit it to paper, at least I've found it, the truth really does come out. And that is a hard thing sometimes to experience.
Yeah, and yeah, so I was alluding well, the conversation we had earlier was about the last especially last month or 2 when I've really started sharing some of the more because I want people to know, like, the human element or the emotional aspect of being a ball player and, getting optioned down to the minor leagues or being designated for assignment. We have all these, like, non-sensory terms for, like, really emotional experiences for the ball players. And, yeah, like you mentioned, like, there's something different about, um, I guess you could write I don't wanna say it was, like, first person, um, I can write about what happened in my career as, like, looking at it and sharing the specifics of how things happened, like, okay, this year I hit, 307 and then I got called up and then I was sent down. It's almost like like a a disassociated way of writing about the story where it's out there. And then, but I've tried more and more of late to write like the first person, like tap back into it, all the emotions and who said what and how I felt when they said it and what I did or didn't do after that. And, yeah, it's like reliving the experiences all over again. And, which I'm sure is healthy in the long run, but there's been days over the last month or 2 of doing that where it's like, I felt like it's impacted me, and, yeah, I have no doubt it's all for the greater good, but at the same time, it's like, "Man, this I feel a little down today," and well, no kidding, you just been writing, about some of the worst painful
Right.
things that ever happened in your baseball career, it makes sense, so
But once you get past it, it's a little bit easier then to deal with whatever that was moving forward. At least that's what I have found. So,
yeah, and I think too so I wrote a lot of this stuff out, like, 5 years ago, and I think um I've learned so much more in other aspects of my life too, especially with my wife now, Sarah. She's a great, you know, coach for other people, and we'll have deep conversations about. So I just realized like how much of the stuff that I went through during my career and some of the experiences, like I've started to recognize them in other areas of my life now, and like I think that's a part of it too. Maybe why I'm doing it is like um, just a deeper level of healing and like not wanting to repeat the same mistakes in different areas. So yeah,
you you spoke about your boys earlier. I want to ask you a couple things, kind of dad stuff wise. Um, we've talked a lot about your challenges in life, but I think being the son of a professional athlete probably presents its own challenges as well.
Yeah.
Both if you're going to effort to follow in his footsteps or if you're not. Um, Speak to that journey a little bit that you've been on with your boys.
I well, I guess the way I would have to try and assume or share of what I know, like from their perspective, I guess, right? Like,
Right.
what's it like growing up with a dad who played the game and was really successful? And it was interesting because I lived in Aspen before coming out here to California for a long time. And one of my really good friends that I made there, his father was um, the first Olympic skier that Aspen ever produced, like in
Mm.
1960 or something like that. And he was raised into skiing hardcore, and he and his twin brother and their little crew in Aspen ended up becoming like some of the best American ski mountaineers.
Mm.
So like he didn't want to do the racing thing like dad did, but they really got into like uh they were the first Americans to go up to Everest on the North Ridge and like ski down the North Ridge, and they've done 27,000-foot peaks, and they've done the most 20,000 footers of any Americans. Like they're really like ski Hall of Fame crew. Really, really amazing people. And but he was the first one that I think ever said, he's like, you like, because he was speaking from his own experience of having this dad who was like this legendary skier, Hall of Fame skier. And he's like, you're never gonna fully understand like what it's gonna be like for them. Like I thought I did, and having more talks with them. And now that the boys are getting a little older, we can have some conversations about it. Um, it definitely makes it, I think on one end, there's a lot of positives because I've always been really patient, really like, if you want to go play, we'll go play. Um, I was such a late bloomer too, where it's like if they're struggling, and it's not like a kid will always understand this, but it's like I've been able to repeat it over and over again. It's just like, there's plenty of time. Like
Right.
you keep showing up, you keep putting in the work, you keep believing in yourself, like you're gonna be really good. Like what that ceiling is, like we don't know, but I don't know. And I've had so many pains and so many failures where it's like I really have taught them to love the game, to appreciate the game. There's so many different roles that they could play in the game if that's what they want. Um, yeah, that's a really big question. And I've got plenty of things to say on it. I think I'm kind of floating around on it right now, but
Well, I
um,
can, I have one other one as it relates to the boys and your experience as a dad that I think is super interesting. You've written about both of them. One would be when they were younger, you felt like maybe you specifically made the game hard for them
mm,
um, as a way to try to train them. And looking back on it, you didn't love that choice. But then later on, I think it was your oldest son was thinking about or did walk away from the game for a little bit, and you seem to handle that really, really well in terms of how you related to him for that. Um, Talk a little bit about those situations and maybe what growth you had to make in between those, to become a better dad.
yeah, so he wanted to quit at 10, and that was just because he didn't feel like he was good enough to hit and play. And so I was really mindful when he said he didn't want to play to sit back and ask a couple questions. And like, are you really not interested in playing this? Like, but like, I think the question I asked is like, if you like, I tell a story and I'm processing all these different thoughts and ideas, and it happened in a matter of seconds. But like, I just looked at him like, if you could hit better, would you want to play? And he just smiled at me. He's like, yeah. So we went to work. That was before I at that point. So they were 10 and 8, and I hadn't barely done anything with them in terms of like what people might expect of a guy
Gotcha.
who's played baseball, and like we're out there working on a swing. No, like I would drop them off. Like we would go to the afternoon, and every afternoon after school, we'd go to the park and like we'd shoot hoops. If they wanted to play catch, they would, it was like, here's a bunch of balls. Here's a basketball. Here's a tennis ball. Here's a baseball. Like, which ones do you want to play with today? And they kind of led the way for a long time. And as they got older, they kind of got more into baseball, and it got to the point where now where we go, we do stuff every day. And but yeah, there. I'll have to admit, I think maybe it's better for the question before because I'll have these conversations with Sarah a lot where, um, she the way she put it, she's like, from her perspective, she's like, I don't think if they don't make it, if they don't do what you did, they're gonna think they're a failure. And I don't know, like, I don't want to think that. I think that that could be a possibility, um, especially the experiences that I had. So, like, I don't know. That's always kind of been in the back of my mind too. And I don't know if I can articulate anything brilliant out of this conversation. You be curious to have your thoughts on it too. But it's like there's a really good chance if they don't do what I did that they'll think they failed. And so I think I've tried to one teach them to love the game, try to be mindful with my words that it's not about this is a journey that's not about getting to the big leagues or getting 10 years in the big leagues. This is just a journey to enjoy, to learn, to get to know teammates. Like the best parts that I look back on now are the moments with my family, the moments with my teammates, the bus rides, the plane flights, the things and the jokes that happen in the clubhouse. I've always tried to instill like that's the important stuff of the game to them too. Um, but in the back of my mind too, there's been things I think like a secondary plan on like how do you give them the best chance um, to be as good as they could be. And yeah, I don't know. It's a big, messy thing being a father sometimes, I guess, in youth
Sure is.
sports.
Well, I will say though, you have to give yourself some grace because, what Sarah said in terms of how they might feel if they didn't do it as well as you did, you are also now, really providing great lessons and an example of what to be as a man, and that is something that in reading about you, it just sounded like you lacked a little growing up, and so
Yeah.
they don't have to necessarily feel that way because they're being guided by someone on a daily basis that is teaching them other ways to live their life.
Yeah. And we're really good about trying to get them interested in all kinds of passions and like I think that's so that's an advantage too where it's like I got to 34 and I'm like, "Oh my god, what am I supposed to do with my life?" Like no one I thought I was going until I was 38, 40 for sure. And I even wanted to there's part of me that wanted to kick around in the independent leagues and for another handful of years and just play the game because I loved it, but like I didn't have an exit strategy. And so it's interesting because I didn't have one. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they understand like there's going to come a day where it's going to stop.
Right.
And even at 16, like within the last couple of years, like I bring that stuff up from time to time. It's like, what else are you guys into? What other passions? Like you can make a career in this game. There's a lot of great careers in this game that don't involve being a player. Like that's can be an option too. But what are other things that you're into? Because there's going to be a second chapter that's going to come eventually. And yeah, like there's a lot of good things from my mistakes that hopefully they'll have a little bit more knowledge and know what's coming than I did. But
Well,
uh,
we've had to have those same discussions with our daughter and her sport. That's kind of driving a little bit of her college decision right now because she's got great grades, but she
what
doesn't
sport is
know.
she into?
I'm sorry,
What sport is she into?
she's in competitive cheerleading.
Cheerleading. Okay.
But she doesn't know what she wants to do in school, and all the schools that she's looking at are big, public institutions, so she can study whatever. But we have to remind her periodically, like, you're not going pro in this. Like, this
Yeah.
is all going to stop eventually. And every day she's doing something to help herself with cheerleading, which is great. But also, there is other things to life than just that.
Yeah.
Um, I am going to wrap us up here on something called the Silent Punt Lightning Round. So I'm going to ask you a couple of quick hitter questions. Just off the top of your head, answer them. And if
I
they
know. You want me to give a short answer to something?
do your best,
Okay.
fun.
Sarah,
All right.
Sarah, relationship strategy with me. Sarah makes me answer things in one word only. She's like, I only want one word answers
I
right now.
like that. All right, well, let's do the Sarah version as much as
Okay,
possible then.
there we go.
Number one, you named your son Lincoln after Sylvester Stallone's character in Over the Top, correct?
Yes, I did.
How'd that conversation go with his mother?
All on board. You know what's interesting was I suggested Lincoln Hawk bots, and then many years later, she's like, "We should have done that," and I was like, "Oh well, too late." But anyway,
So what is his middle name?
Tyler, Lincoln Tyler. I
Lincoln.
thought I was gonna call him LT, and I've
Oh,
never once called him LT.
yeah. Well, I have a friend whose son, I don't even remember his son's actual names, but his it was a T name and a D name, so they called him TD.
Well, I like
And
that.
he was a
Yeah.
football coach, but they named him whatever it was, Theodore David, without realizing they were going to shorten it to TD. Okay, which is harder? You faced Aroldis Chapman in the minors, throwing 104, 105. Facing him or throwing batting practice to a frustrated teenager?
Oh, definitely the latter. Definitely. I was
Okay,
actually having a
good.
conversation with someone the other day who does professional instruction at the place we're going the other day, and I was like, "Hey," because I didn't know it. Is this just me? "Hey, is it really hard when the kid's frustrated to throw like accurately to him?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "Okay, good. It's not just me."
And then it's a spiral, I would imagine, too, because they
Yeah.
get frustrated and it makes it
Well,
harder.
and then when it's your kid, there's an element too, right? Like when your kid's not behaving or carrying not emotionally reacting in a way that you think as a parent is best, and like dad son stuff starts coming into it too. So yeah,
For sure.
I'd
Um,
much rather face Chapman.
I'm going to combine the last one, and you can choose which way to answer it. I was either going to ask the funniest teammate story you're legally or morally permitted to tell, or the funniest story from Mexican winter ball. I think of Mexican ball, and I immediately go to Major League and Jake Taylor.
Yeah, like there's a lot of stories that I've told that people will start laughing and start talking about Kenny Powers, the Kenny Powers show. I can't
Yeah.
Eastbound and Down as that was. There was a lot of
Mhm.
stuff. Um, Probably not the funniest, but one of the most interesting I wanted to write about the other day. I was gonna do my longest bus rides stories, and
Mm.
I've got several. Mexico was definitely not my longest one, but there was one time where we were playing in Mexicali, and it was freezing, freezing, freezing cold up there, and it was so cold. And then uh, we were supposed to bus straight to our game at home. It was 18-hour bus ride, and we're supposed to get there like right at the start of the game. And I remember I didn't even shower after the game because the water was coming. Water was freezing cold, and it was already been 3.5 hours of being cold outside. And there wasn't even a shower head on the showers that had been busted off who knows how long ago. And water was like streaming out of the wall, and it was freezing. And I'm like, dude, I'm not showering. Grabbed a couple tacos outside the field, and we went on a bus ride for 18 hours,
Oh
stopped
my
one
god!
time, and we got there late, and the game was supposed to start at our home place at 7:30. We had to push it back to 8 because we showed up at 7:30, walked right off the bus. Um, they're big on like instant coffee at those fields there. And so I was like shoveling instant coffee into my mouth without even mixing it into water. And yeah, hit a double off the wall my first at bat, homer my second at bat, and then my entire brain shut off. I was exhausted and worn out, and I was kind of spacey, and they ended up pulling me after a couple innings later. But um, yeah, that was like I need more hero stories like that where I went through some crazy trip and then I hit a home run. Those are always better stories.
I heard definitely better stories.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Your Have Bat Will Travel. Check him out on Substack. You said how long ago did you start your Substack?
I
Like a year?
started it 4 years ago.
Well, you haven't been writing that whole time though, right?
I was no, yeah. I was so here and there for a year or two, and I tried to get into it at one point, and then ever since like the fall of last year, I've been pretty much writing every week. Um, there was some stuff that happened last December where we lost our baby pet, and I couldn't write for a few weeks,
Right.
but every week for almost a year now. And then, but I didn't even know about the Substack app really, and being a part of all those other writers in the community, the people that get on there, until like a couple months ago. And
Okay.
then it was like, oh, this is where I was supposed to be. This is
Yeah, it's
great.
pretty cool.
I like now I'm on Substack. Like I check in on Instagram every once in a while, but I get really happy being on Substack. So
Yeah, people are nice, which is odd as it
yeah,
relates to
and it's such
social
a
media.
different experience. Like I'm in by primarily there's a bunch of people who write about baseball and fans, and like that's really helped me. I think that's where I got back into the writing that I did, because it's like it reminded me of being a fan. And on my other accounts, it's not really like that. I follow a bunch of other stuff and whatnot, but it's like just being around a bunch of fans of the game, talking about the game, commenting and asking other people questions and stuff like that. Like it's been really nice, really nice.
Well, I can't recommend people go and read it enough. It's not just about baseball. You got great stories to tell, life lessons to tell, and you're a really good writer. So
Thank you.
thanks again for joining me.
Only if I write well, it's only because I wrote bad for so long.
Well, it's like anything else, right? You get better with more time.
So it
So
takes a lot of crappy swings to have a good baseball swing.
that's
I
right.
learned that lesson the first time around. So
All right, Jason.
thanks, Henny.